Welcome to Let's Talk About It. I'm Sheena and I'm joined today by the fantastic Lee Winter, who's going to talk to us about fandoms and why they're important to lesbian culture. Lee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, good to talk to you again.
Okay, so I'm not a huge participant in any kind of fandoms, but over the last few years I've seen so many new fandoms spring up and become important in the lesbian scene. But you're quite well versed in lesbian fandoms, and that's how you started writing fiction, am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I go back to the Xena days. Xena started out in 1995, and I was right there at the at the coalface when the whole thing started, and was friends with Mary D, who started the Australian Xena information page, or AusXIP. I think it was AXIP back then. And so we got to see a hell of a lot about the whole coming together of not only the fandom for Xena, but the start of lesfic, as in fan fiction writing. And it was an amazing time because for the very first time, suddenly you were having lesbians from all over the world who had a way to connect with each other. And we'd never seen anything like it. Mary certainly hadn't seen anything like it. And Mary writes, just so you know, she writes these great lesbian fiction books, even though she's a straight woman. She calls herself the gayest straight woman there is. And I think a lot of this comes back from the Xena days. We watched what was happening. It was phenomenal. And I asked her last night to what the typical fan was of Xena back then. And she said, we're talking women in their mid-30s, not the young ones you might see today who are like shipping very young. We're talking about women from all over the world who got together and found this new show and thought, oh my goodness, finally, someone for me to ship, to admire, to like. And it was amazing. It was a phenomenon.
Absolutely. It still today is a massive phenomenon. I'm a huge Xena fan. From back in the day, I used to record it religiously. I was really upset the one time when I missed the one episode. I still remember all of those many, many emotions, and it definitely had something to do with the fact that I could see something of myself on screen almost. Is this what fandoms give us?
Well, they give us a tribe. That's part of it. Oh, they give us a lot of things. Like back in the Xena days, they gave us something that was ours. We had like the safety and security to talk about who we were and not feel quite so judged out in the wider mainstream. Having said that, this is a very important thing. When Xena started out, all shows were for basically heterosexuals, and here was the show that out of nowhere snuck into the subconscious, under the radar, and suddenly there was this lesbian subtext. Now, just because there was subtext doesn't mean that the mainstream automatically just went, oh yeah, they're gay. Back then you didn't have that, not really. And it was in subsequent years, it's so obvious looking back that it was very gay. But one thing I discovered, in fact, you can see it if you go to Mary's site, you can see it to this day in the Xena reviews. When they phrased it as this is a subtextual thing, they say, if you see it, you'll look at this scene. And otherwise, just enjoy this scene. And they were very careful to not put the mainstream offside, not ask for more than was being offered. I mean, it's amazing when you think of it now, where people are demanding their queer, idols and stuff. Back then, you did not want to upset the apple cart. You did not want to give Rob Tappert the shits and and have him pair Xena up with some guy for the rest of his life. You were really, really, really about the crumbs under the table, and it was very important to us to keep the show going and to keep having what we had, and we didn't ask for more than we could get. And oh my goodness, how much has lesbian fandom changed now? How amazing the younger generations, when they don't just ask for queer characters, they demand it. And when something bad happens to it, then they have campaigns. And then when their show gets cancelled, they have more campaigns and petitions. Oh, it's incredible. The change is incredible.
It's true, hey? I mean, look at something like Lexicon was born out of exactly that, this movement to say, actually, this is not good enough. Stop killing the gays.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, I have watched in awe the change in lesbian culture through fan fiction and fandoms. Sort of, look, Xena was the first, and we didn't expect much. We didn't ask for much. We took what they gave us, and such a thing as queer baiting never entered our lexicon because we didn't even think we should dare even have this. Then, I think from memory, Buffy came next, and we got Tara and Willow, and there were a lot of people who were also shipping Faith and Buffy and various other things. And that was the first time I can recall where the fans actually wrote to Joss Whedon and begged him to make Tara gay, and he did. Now, I know he's on the nose for some people for a great many reasons, but he actually did that. It was the first time it happened, and suddenly for the first time, a lot of lesbian fans saw they had some power, and you just have to sort of ask. I think after that we got, I think the Star Trek Voyager fandom was pretty big after that for a while, and then we moved on to some of the more modern ones. But the progression has been, taking what you got, then begging sweetly, and now you just sort of like demand it, damn it. But it's just a cultural thing. I mean, you just, back then you just didn't ask for much, and now it's amazing what comes from people all banding together and just saying we're not going to take it, and don't you dare queer bait us, and what the hell was Rosolian Isles anyway, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's true. What was Rosolian Isles anyway?
Explain that show to me, seriously. That's the other thing. When I was talking to Mary about it, she said she watched as the fans as a whole sucked in a breath every time a male love interest came on screen, and then they all exhaled in relief as one when he exited. And that was like the cutest little thing I can imagine. Like we didn't know where it was going to go. I mean, all you people who are watching it in hindsight, you have the benefit of knowing they didn't pair up with men. It was all fine. And although the ending was horrific, it was still Xena for Gabs and Gabs for Xena at the end. But like even today, that's the one thing that is true today. Even today, we still suck in a breath and hold our breath when the male love interest comes on screen, like Once Upon a Time or Supergirl or whatever, and then you exhale with relief when he leaves, but unfortunately he hasn't left, you bastards. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. We are still at the whim of these showmakers who, like, if they like us, maybe they'll, give us that. Another change I've seen, though, this is the very big one, is like fans have worked out that we're allowed one gay couple per show. That's it. Unless it's Grey's Anatomy, in which case, God bless Shonda Rhimes, and you're allowed a few, but you're allowed one. But if they pick the wrong one, according to a subset of fans, they don't just take it kindly. They will actually torpedo the fandom they don't like in the hope that they get the one they do like, which is what's been happening on Supergirl. There's a certain subset of the Supercorp fans who want Lena together with Supergirl, and they're hating on the Alex fans who are, and you're like, oh my God, because they've learned that it's a zero-sum game, because Hollywood has taught us that this is all we're going to get. We're going to get one character and her girlfriend, and that's it. So that's the next step. It's like, how do you cope with only getting one?
Well, that's interesting. So fandoms are fighting against each other if they don't like a couple. Is that...
Well, they think if I only get one, if I make this couple so hated, or I make the producer hate that couple, they'll get rid of that couple and we might get another one. It's like, I don't like my baby brother. If I killed my baby brother, maybe I'll get a baby sister. It's the New World Order, and I must say I hadn't struck it before, but that's the downside of having all these really affirmative, demanding what we want fans, is that we also get affirmative demanding what we want fans who really are very specific about what they want. And it's been educated. I can't wait to see what happens next. I can only hope that Hollywood gets a clue and we don't get the zero-sum game of one couple per show, and maybe we will get a bit more Grey's Anatomy, and in the future, lots and lots of, well, not lots and lots, but more than one gay couple. That would be amazing.
I'd like to see leading gay ladies as opposed to, secondary or sort of very side characters.
Yes, that would be amazing. We haven't seen that really yet. That's why Xena was also special. You had the lead of the show and her BFF, and they had, more subtext than you could swing a cat at, and they didn't hide it.
No, they quite openly spoke about being soulmates.
I imagine there must have been so much pressure from Hollywood to pair those women up with men. I mean, a fabulous story I heard, I think, which season was it? I think it was season 5, the hated season 5. Was it season 5? Anyway, so Renee O'Connor, who plays Gabrielle, had been told that she had to flirt with some new blow-in. And the problem that she had with that was because A, she saw Xena as being, Gabrielle's love of her life, and B, Xena was extremely pregnant at the time. And she thought, well, why would she go off flirting with some guy when Xena's pregnant? And so her solution was to just completely ignore the directive and just act it completely straight, completely without any, and they kept saying, no, just flirt and we'll fix it in post. And she's like, no, I've been around the block a few times. And so she did not do any of that. She just basically played it straight. And I've watched the episode. It's very clear she's just giving this guy who's trying his damnedest to look really into her and everything, and she's just blank slate. It's just like, no, nothing back. And so, yeah. But anyway, so a lot of pressure on them to keep throwing penises in the mix, and God bless Renee O'Connor. I have to say that was a really good result. But it is so frustrating when you see shows where you've got two women who have got far more chemistry together than the blow-in men, or even the not blow-in men. Once upon a time, I'm looking at you, Swan Queen, what the hell? These bloody very, very tepid men that they kept flinging at these women. And I'm like, oh, under your nose, just look. No, I'm just slightly scarred, eternally betrayed. Oh, man. Anyway, back to what the fandom gives the lesbians. Look, it's if you're not from the Western world, it does something else as well. It gives you a place, a safety to be interested in gay culture without it being obvious. So, and even for some people who feel threatened who are in the Western world, I remember before Don't Ask, Don't Tell got repealed, reading a soldier's point of view, and she was saying that she had to furtively read her fan fiction because it was not obvious that it was lesbian. Whereas if she was seen with, say, a lesfic book, it was clear that, often sometimes the covers gave it away, or people could just Google the title or whatever, whereas she could read her lesfics, and she was talking about books like Tropical Storm by Missy Good that I think at most they had one kiss in it, so she was safe. And so fan fiction gave her a haven, a way to escape, the homophobic circumstances. And I imagine it'd be the same for a lot of people in a lot of countries where they can't just go forth and buy the lesfic book of their choosing. They can secretly download a document and read it and get their escape that way. So there's safety there. There's the tribe, as I was saying. You just feel part of something bigger than you, something that is warm and nice and wonderful. You make a lot of friends. I met my girlfriend in the Xena fandom, and we've been together 20 years now. And you make, Mary told me that if she had $1 for every woman who'd hooked up thanks to her page, she would be a millionaire by now. So there were a lot of, love-starved lesbians around the world, I think, back when Xena started. Yeah, belonging, protection, tribe, just feeling part of something. And also being able to express a viewpoint that it isn't mainstream, but not feeling like at any moment you're going to get knocked down for it. I remember, like I say, they were so careful in the Xena days to not offend the mainstream viewers, to be very, very careful that, say, the Xena Aries fans and so forth didn't get their noses out of joint and felt like, we felt like we were begging for crumbs, and we felt grateful for everything they gave us. We felt grateful when the mainstream didn't shit all on us from a very great height, excuse my language. And you didn't have a thing called fandom wars the way you do today, where you're either shipping this or you're shipping that, and if you're shipping that, you fight with people who ship this. And I mean from different, whether they're heterosexual or gay or whatever. You didn't have any of that, and it was more like we were just afraid of pissing off the majority, whereas now you can go in with your flamethrower, say, what are you talking about, Captain Hook and Emma Swan? It should be Emma Swan and oh my God, you cause meltdowns. So, there's the good and the bad. I do think I prefer it, though. I do think I prefer that we now have the freedom to just say, I think this, and I don't care what the other fandom thinks. Whereas back then we were just so careful. We were really making sure that we were allowed to exist. Now we are allowed to exist, and we don't have to be so careful. So, that's a change.
It is a change. Let's talk about developing a sense of self within the fandom. From what I've gathered, a lot of people have come to terms with being gay or being queer or whatever it is that they're discovered through fan fiction, because they could get something out of it the way I got something out of lesbian fiction when I first read it and I saw myself. Do you think that happens?
Of course. I mean, more so in the past with the early stuff when it wasn't quite so commonly talked about. Whereas now you've got people coming out of the closet in primary school. That's a really big change. And I think a lot of it's to do with our popular culture. And shows like Glee were absolutely paramount for kids seeing themselves and therefore identifying and being able to come out. With fan fiction, yeah. I mean, I think usually people, by the time they seek out fan fiction, they already have a pretty good inkling where they're going with that. Like they've actually seen something in the show and they've experienced an attraction to someone, and then they seek out the fan fiction. So they've already kind of a bit further down that path. But yeah, it does bring things to the surface, doesn't it?
Even if you kind of have this inkling, it gives you a space where you can come to terms with yourself and go, okay, it's okay to be this way.
Yeah, it's accepted. You find your tribe, they accept you, you read the entertainment of the tribe, which is the fan fiction, you get encouraged, you don't feel in any way shamed or whatever for what might be an unpopular viewpoint outside the tribe. So, yeah, it's a very freeing and warm place. And it's little wonder that, especially with the big fandoms, that a lot of people come together and they feel really part of a collective for the first time, maybe even in their life, especially if they're in a small town in the middle of nowhere where they've got for instance, a very religious, conservative, mainstream, and yet they can sneak off online and suddenly they're part of something big and they don't feel small and they don't feel wrong. They feel right for the first time.
Is that what you got out of writing it?
No, I was just like, I'm a journalist, or I was a journalist, and I just thought it'd be fun to play with these characters like puppets on a string. Yeah, I was like mid-20s or something, so I was already well and truly come to terms with who I was, but I thought it might be fun to just play with them a bit. But I know some people write for very different reasons, and some of them, it's almost like they're putting themselves out on the page. They're really coming to terms with a lot of things.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of history, culture, the roles they play?
I remember in the early days of Xena, Mary had all sorts of different closed forum boards and things like that, and we would get quite regularly straight people coming on and telling us we were delusional. And I mean, it still happens to a certain extent, often with trolls these days, but these were people who really meant it. They really thought that we were insane and we were seeing things that they couldn't see. And if they couldn't see it, therefore it didn't exist and therefore we were delusional. They really did mean it like that. And what felt amazing to me after, copying that in the eyeballs, was like Mary and the site would often wade in and say, no, you're not delusional. I'm a straight woman and I can see it. And it was just, for the first time ever, it felt like we had allies. And the number of straight allies we have from Xena is actually huge. It's not just all lesbians driving this. It was the first time I could see myself being protected by the mainstream, and I had never seen that before. That was a huge thing for me. I was just so used to, all right, there's us fighting a good fight, struggling our struggle, trying to not get too down on ourselves for, accepting the scraps under the table. And then suddenly here's this large group of people who are saying, hey, leave the lesbians alone. I see it too. They're fine. They're one of us. They're good. And that was a really affirming thing for, young women back then, or mid-30s as we were, according to Mary. That was the start of finding allies, I think, in the straight world, which, again, I didn't expect to find it, and there they were. So it was wonderful.
I didn't realize that happened. That's interesting. Hmm. Props to the straight people.
Yeah. Mary also wants to point out that this is how good the Xenite fans are. The Xena fan is a Xenite, in case you don't know. Because they're all mid-30s and not straight out of high school and so forth, the way a lot of the new fandoms are today, because a lot of them had careers and jobs and stuff and were quite well established, they were cashed up, and so far they've donated $15 million to charity over 22 years, because that's the power of fans when they've got a bit of money in their pocket. So, dismiss us at your own peril, people who think that lesbians are not worth catering to. We are. 15 million. I think that's US too, so that's good.
That's amazing. Where did the money go? What kind of charities? Do you know?
It would have been probably Lucy's Starlight Foundation, which is a children's hospital thing in New Zealand. I think that was probably the bulk of it. I remember at the time she talked about it a lot. So, yeah. But that's the power. Look, fans, when you put them all together, the power. We think we're small on our own, don't we? We think we're nothing. And then we get together with a few friends and a few more friends, and then we all bond over a show, and then maybe a few straight allies come on board and a few more, and then suddenly we've got power, purchasing power and queer power, rights, demanding rights and fighting things and having petitions. And then before you know it, you've got a Klexicon. And it all just starts from one little thing. It's amazing.
That's true, hey? And super props to Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor for their continued support with the community, because every time I've seen any interviews with them, they've been very, very supportive of the fandoms and the subtext and all of that stuff. So unfortunately, sometimes you get people who actors who rile against it. Oh no, we're not, there's no subtext, we're not gay. And I think that that's just harmful.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. I mean, most actresses I've come across, and I have actually interviewed a lot in my life, tend to take the view, if someone adores me, that's fabulous. I don't really care who it is or why. I mean, you get even people who are quite strong-willed and strong-nosed, and like Kate Mulgrew, Catherine Janeway, she's another one. She's like, I love all my fans. I don't care who you are. I love you all. And even though she wasn't a fan of pairing her up with Seven of Nine, because she said, oh, that's a bit too much for me. And she was a bit like freaked out at that idea. You know, she didn't care if she had like lesbian fans hanging off the rafters or anything. There are lots and lots of actresses like that, but every now and then you'll get one who just is freaking the hell out, and they're dismissing their fans, and they don't even realise how hurtful that is. To basically, like, they don't, not even content to say, well, it's I don't see it myself, but if fans want to see that, that's fine. They don't even say that. They actually go the full Monty. They say it's not there, it doesn't exist, you don't see it, it's not happening, it wasn't written, it wasn't even thought about, it wasn't even subtext, wasn't a twinkle in anyone's eye, and I don't agree with it. And you're just like, oh my God, really? Did you have to? Did you? Really? Did you have to?
Especially when you're dealing with the LGBT community who have been so oppressed. And there's such a horrible, violent history of nastiness and so on. So you don't want to be doing that.
It just makes no sense, you know. I mean, unless you're setting yourself up for a role later in life as a Fox News reader or something. I just don't understand what you're benefiting from it by alienating a certain percentage of your fans. I just don't get it. And, you know, the other thing they forget, those little princesses and princes who make these statements, is you're working in a very gay industry, people. And some of the people you're dissing are your makeup artist and your director and your producer. And, yeah, good luck with that.
That's true. You know, even if it comes from their own self-loathing or their own inability to come out of the closets or whatever it is, because I've heard all of these theories, still not okay. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Really. One thing I do, it's a line. There's also the queer baiting problem where they go too far the other way. And I really wish they would stop giving us hope when there is no hope. I really, really don't like that at all. I'm looking at you again, Once Upon a Time. Stop it. Don't tell us to keep watching. That's rude. That's oh God.
I haven't actually been watching Once Upon a Time. What do you mean? What are they doing? They're putting in subtext where there actually is no hope.
Oh my God. Oh, don't start me. Oh, look, the show's over now. It's ended. It's had its finale. But particularly in the early seasons when all it was Emma and Regina in each other's faces having like hate sex looks all the time, promising how to get the saviour to taste my forbidden fruit was a fabulous line, and all these other things. Anyway, and when the lesbian fans got all excited, the showrunners kept saying things like, you know, keep watching and, you know, we love you, and they just kept trying to hint that there was more to come, and then suddenly enter the boyfriends. And then when people were like, well, hang on, you told all the lesbians to keep watching and so on, and then now we've got the boyfriends. Keep watching, okay. So then there was a con, and someone asked the question about the subtext, whether it was in the script or whether it was just added in by the actresses. And that was the moment. That was D-Day. That was ground zero, because the answer was it was unintentional, and he said it in such a way like it's in your heads. And that was the beginning of the end. And then all the people on all the other ships started going, yeah, you delusional little Swan Queen people. Ha, 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 we told you. And so it was on. And then, rather than saying, no, people should ship whoever they want and don't be cruel to the Swan, they just said nothing. And it all just went downhill. And it was all very sad and tragic. And That was kind of like if I could write a textbook on how not to treat your fans, it would be what the Once Upon a Time fandom did. It was very bad. It was just so much disrespect all around.
That's so interesting. That's almost like the polar opposite of, what you want to be doing because you want to be giving something to your fans. So, okay, then you have Supergirl, right? Who, and
Oh my God.
okay, but
Yeah.
they seem to be kind of sort of trying to give something, but not the right thing.
Yeah, that's a bit problematic, that fandom. I mean, that show. I mean, on the one hand, yes, they introduced Alex and now she's gay. Yay. And then they gave her Maggie. Yay. And then they didn't really use Maggie very much and they cut down her scenes to the point the actress left. And so now there's no Maggie. So now we've just got gay, pining lesbian on her own, who last we looked, sorry, spoiler alert, everyone, she's looking at adoption agencies because she wants a baby to fill that big gay void or whatever it is in him. Oh, it's really bad. And then on the flip side, you've got all this, subtext going on from Katie McGrath, who plays Lena, and she's giving looks to everyone, but including Supergirl. And so the Supercore fans who ship that pairing are just like desperate for those two to hook up. And then everyone else is going, well, you can't have two gay sisters on a show, can you? Which is what I'm saying. There's only one per show. So anyway, then they had a con, and I can't remember the name. The guy who plays Win decided it'd be really funny to sing a song about how Supercorp would never happen. So that was fun. That backlash. That went on for a few days. So they're not quite handling the fans quite so well. It just feels all everyone's feeling disrespected or ignored or something. And I don't really think that there is a playbook on how to handle this, to be honest. I just
So
don't
we
know.
need to have like instruction manuals for showrunners and actors on how to deal with your fandoms and make them feel wanted and not piss them off, basically.
Look, here's the thing. Aside from the obvious queer baiting, Xena actually had the playbook, and it was this. Tell every fan that, they're respected, that their ship is fine, you're cool with it, anything goes, it's fine, whatever you believe, whatever's happening in the ad breaks, that's what's happening. And, don't say nothing's never going to be, just don't treat them like dirt, basically, and treat them with respect. And if someone's seeing subtext, don't tell them there's no subtext there. What the hell? I don't know. And if people are absolutely campaigning for a couple to get together and they've not been linked to any male at that point, before you rule it out, before you start thinking of all the penises you can fling at this couple, ask yourself, wait a minute, what if we did do something with this couple? Would that be good? Maybe? Would that be a thing?
Flinging penises. Now there's an image. Thanks, Lee. I'll never get rid of that image now.
Oh, sorry about that. But the problem still remains the queer baiting. I mean, yeah, that's such a line. Queer baiting means different things to different people too. So some people think if they get teased but it doesn't happen, it's queer baiting. Some people think it's a couple that has chemistry but has never ever been linked with a woman or a man but then goes to a man. That's queer baiting. And there's every definition in between. So I'm not really sure, but it's a tricky one. And then you have the shows where the actresses are doing the queer baiting. Warehouse 13, fabulous show, where the two actresses, which was Jamie Murray playing H.G. Wells, and I've forgotten the other woman's name. Help me out, someone. Anyway, the show lead, those two were shipping each other like you wouldn't believe because they had so much in common. The characters were so perfect for each other. They were both highly read, literate, interesting, inventive women, and so they shipped each other. And they even had a con together, and someone made some joke about what they'd be doing, and they said they were scissoring, things like that. But the actual showrunner just cracked the shits, and geez, I've got to stop swearing, haven't I? And paired her up with the guy who was almost her brother on the show, and it was like everyone was just like, dude, not with Pete. No, that's awful. But
Lee, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
So, just before we go quickly, where can people find cool fandoms if they've want to join them? Never heard of websites like Mary D's. Where would you recommend?
Oh, Well, if you like Xena, obviously Mary D, she's got actually a whole bunch of other shows she follows. Basically, if it's got any of the original cast of Xena in it, she follows them. She's ausxip.com. I think there's no AU. I'm fairly sure there's not. And then, but if you just are looking for your regular fandoms, I'd hit Tumblr or AO3 and find out who the peeps are running the show there. They're always good. AO3 is Archive of Our Own, which is a fanfiction mega site. Far, far, far superior to fanfiction.com if you ask me. But you can, have a great deal of fun there. And like I say, a lot of fandoms hang out at Tumblr and share a lot of funny memes and GIFs and stories and stuff. And you can find your people there too.
And where can people find your writing?
Oh, well, I don't write fan fiction anymore, but you can always buy my books, lesbian books. LeeWinterAuthor.com. Check me out.
Definitely. Check her out. She's just got a new book out as well.
Yeah, Under Your Skin. It's the sequel to my first book, The Red Files.
Right, so if you love The Red Files, Tara says you're going to love Under Your Skin. She's busy reading it as we speak.
Excellent.
This has been Let's Talk About It. I'm Sheena and I've been joined today by Lee Winter. All the links to the things we've spoken about will be in the show notes, including a link to Lee Winter's website. If you enjoyed the show, ponder becoming a patron, because we have exclusive podcasts just for our patrons. Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.